The Novan Armada moved silently through the edges of what they called the outer void. Their ships gleamed like polished black stones against the darkness of space. Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Eternal Shadow. His 6 eyes, arranged in a perfect hexagon on his flat, gray face, blinked one after another as he studied the holographic image floating before him. "A blue planet," he said, "rich with water. Not at all what we expected to find in this sector." The ship's sensors had detected the solar system 2 days earlier. What began as a routine mapping mission had suddenly become much more interesting. The Novan Collective had been expanding their territory for centuries, always seeking new resources and worlds to bring under their control. Captain Sunwoo approached, her footsteps nearly silent on the smooth deck. Unlike Commander Tejo, whose skin was gray and leathery, Sunwoo's was deep purple with faint luminescent patterns that pulsed with her breathing. "Commander, the initial scans are complete," she said. "The 3rd planet appears to support abundant life." Tejo's feeding tendrils twitched with excitement beneath his breathing mask. "Any intelligent species?" "Yes, Commander. One dominant species has spread across the entire planet. They call themselves humans." Tejo circled the hologram, watching the slow rotation of the blue world. "Prepare a detailed report. If this planet is as rich in resources as it appears, the High Council will be very pleased." The scout ships returned 12 hours later. Captain Sunwoo collected their findings and presented them to Commander Tejo in the strategy room. The walls displayed moving images of Earth, its cities, oceans, and various human activities. "Captain Sunwoo, what do your scouts report?" Tejo asked, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the streams of data. "Most peculiar findings, Commander," Sunwoo replied. She touched a control panel, and the images changed to show human cities, vehicles, and what appeared to be primitive spacecraft. The dominant species appears chaotic yet organized. They possess nuclear technology, primitive space travel, and show remarkable adaptability. However, they seem completely unaware of galactic civilization. The images shifted to show humans engaged in various activities, building structures, growing food, engaging in what seemed to be both conflict and cooperation. Tejo's membrane fluttered with interest, and no contact from other species. "No trade routes." "None, Commander. But we detected something unusual, a warning beacon in high orbit. The script is unlike anything in our translation database." This was unexpected. Tejo moved closer to the display showing the beacon, a small, ancient-looking device orbiting beyond Earth's moon. Its surface was covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "How old is this beacon?" Tejo asked. "Our estimates suggest at least 50,000 planetary cycles," Sunwoo said. "Far older than any human technology we've observed." "So someone was here before us," Tejo mused. "And they left a warning. But about what? The humans seem hardly worth such concern. Should we abort the mission, Commander?" Tejo's secondary eyes narrowed. "No. Prepare a scout ship for closer inspection of the beacon. I want to know what it says before we make any decisions." The scout ship departed within the hour, piloted by the fleet's best reconnaissance team. The rest of the Armada held position just beyond the edge of the solar system, hidden from Earth's primitive detection systems. "Time to beacon intercept. 20 standard units," announced the flight controller. Tejo settled into his command chair. This mission could earn him great honor among the Novan leadership. New worlds for colonization were increasingly rare, and one so rich with resources would make him a hero to his people. "Commander," called the sensor operator suddenly, "we're detecting unusual energy readings." Tejo's attention snapped to the main view screen. "Source: unknown, sir. It appears to be." The operator never finished. Space itself seemed to tear open in front of the Novan fleet. A massive vessel emerged from what looked like a fold in reality, its appearance accompanied by a burst of radiation that temporarily blinded several of the Novan sensors. The ship that appeared dwarfed their entire fleet. It was unlike anything in Novan records, a massive structure that seemed built from crystalline materials and unknown metals. Its design was both organic and geometric, with sections that appeared to phase in and out of normal space. Defensive positions, Taejo ordered, but even as he spoke, he knew their weapons would be useless against such a vessel. Commander, Sunwoo whispered, her voice tight with fear. That's an Elder Guardian vessel. The Elder Guardians. Taejo had thought them a myth, an ancient race said to have achieved technological advancement beyond comprehension before disappearing from the galaxy millions of years ago. Yet here was one of their ships, impossibly real and impossibly massive. All ships hold position, Taejo commanded. No aggressive actions. Monitor all frequencies for communication. The bridge fell silent as the crew waited. The Elder vessel made no move toward them, simply hovering in space like a predator watching its prey. Commander, said the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission. Audio and visual. On screen. Taejo ordered. The main display flickered, and an image appeared of a being unlike any Taejo had seen before. It appeared vaguely humanoid, but was composed of shifting light patterns within a roughly defined shape. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Novan vessels, the being said, the words translated automatically by the ship's systems. You approach a protected world. Your presence here violates ancient protocols established for the safety of all spacefaring species. Taejo stood, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. I am Commander Taejo of the Novan Collective. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We were unaware of any protection status for this system. The warning beacon is clear, the being replied. This system, and particularly the third planet, are under the protection of the Elder Compact. Humans are off limits. We do not harm them. Neither shall you. The threat was clear in the being's tone. Taejo looked at Sunwoo, who stood rigid with tension. We meant no offense, Taejo said carefully. May I ask why this species receives such protection? They appear to be primitive by galactic standards. The being seemed to study Taejo for a moment. That is not your concern, Commander. You will withdraw your forces immediately or face consequences. Before Taejo could respond, the Elder vessel released a pulse of energy that washed over the Novan fleet. Every ship's systems flickered momentarily. What did they do? Taejo demanded. Unknown, Commander, responded the science officer. But they've somehow locked our weapon systems. We cannot fire. Taejo stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Novan Collective had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never encountered anything like this. For the first time in his long career, Commander Taejo felt genuine fear. Commander, Sunwoo said quietly at his side, what are your orders? Taejo watched the Elder vessel, its impossible structure seeming to mock their own primitive technology. We withdraw, he said finally. But this isn't over. I want to know why these humans are so important, and I intend to find out. As Commander Taejo stood frozen on the bridge of the Eternal Shadow, the voice of the Elder being echoed through the ship's communication systems. Novan vessels, this is Guardian Jewel of the Elder Collective. Your presence near Earth violates ancient protocol. Withdraw immediately. The words hung in the air, cold and final. Taejo looked at his officers, seeing the same fear in their postures that he felt himself. Captain Sunwoo approached, her purple skin now pale with tension. Commander, she whispered, we should comply and leave this system. Taejo's 6 eyes blinked out of sequence, a sign of deep thought among his species. The Novan Collective had never retreated from a potential conquest. His superiors would not accept failure without explanation. Open a channel, he ordered suddenly. Commander, Sunwoo asked, clearly surprised. If we leave now, we learn nothing. Open a channel to the Elder vessel. The communications officer worked quickly. Channel open, Commander. Taejo straightened his posture. Guardian Jewel of the Elder Collective. This is Commander Taejo. We respect your authority but request further information. Perhaps a meeting would allow us to better understand the situation. There was a long silence. The crew of the Eternal Shadow waited, hardly breathing. Finally, the response came. "Your request is unusual, Commander Tejo. Most species flee at our appearance. The Novan collective values knowledge as much as conquest," Tejo replied. His feeding tendrils twitched nervously beneath his breathing mask. Another pause. "Very well. I will come aboard your vessel for a brief meeting. Prepare your docking bay. I will arrive alone in one standard time unit." The transmission ended. The bridge erupted in hushed conversations until Tejo raised a hand for silence. "Captain Sunwoo, prepare the diplomatic chamber. Full security protocols, but ensure all weapons are secured. We do not want to appear threatening." "Yes, Commander. But is this wise? The elders are known to be—" Sunwoo paused, searching for the right word. "Unpredictable," Tejo suggested. "Perhaps, but we need information before we decide our next move." The hour passed quickly as the crew prepared. Guards lined the corridors from the docking bay to the diplomatic chamber, though Tejo doubted they would offer any real protection if the Elder being decided to attack. A small shuttle departed from the massive Elder vessel, gliding silently toward the Novan flagship. It entered the docking bay without requesting permission, settling on the deck with perfect precision. Tejo and Sunwoo waited as the shuttle's door opened. The being that emerged was nothing like the light-pattern entity they had seen on the view screen. Instead, Guardian Juwu appeared in physical form, tall and elegant, with a body composed of what looked like living crystal. Her exoskeleton caught the light and broke it into countless colors, creating the impression of constant movement. She walked toward them with fluid grace. "Commander Tejo," she acknowledged with a slight nod. Her voice was melodic, coming not from a mouth but seeming to emanate from her entire being. "Guardian Juwu," Tejo replied with a deeper bow. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Please, follow me." They walked in silence to the diplomatic chamber, a large room with a central table and viewing ports showing the stars outside. Tejo noted that Juwu moved with perfect confidence, as if she already knew the layout of the ship. Once inside, Tejo gestured to a seat. Juwu remained standing. "We will not require much time, Commander," she said. "What do you wish to know?" Tejo's membrane fluttered with suppressed excitement. Direct contact with an Elder was unprecedented in Novan history. "This system is clearly important to the Elder Collective," he began carefully. "We would understand why." Juwu's crystalline form shimmered as she moved to the center of the room. "This system is protected," she stated simply. "Humans are off limits. We don't harm them." "Why such protection for an unaligned species?" Tejo demanded, his patience thinning despite his fear. "They have no treaties, no alliances. They're barely spacefaring." Guardian Juwu raised a crystalline arm, and the room darkened. From her palm projected a holographic display that filled the air around them. Tejo and Sunwoo found themselves surrounded by images of worlds and species they had never seen before. "The Duri Empire," Juwu said, highlighting an image of elegant spired cities populated by tall winged beings. Once spanning 300 star systems, the image shifted to show those same cities in ruins, the planet's barren. "The Moonho Collective," she continued, showing spherical space habitats populated by tentacled creatures. The next image showed the habitats drifting empty in space. "The Republic of Hana," she said finally, displaying humanoid beings with scaled skin living on a lush green world. The following image showed a handful of survivors huddled in underground shelters. "All mighty civilizations," Juwu stated. "All attempted to conquer Earth. All met their end shortly after." Tejo stared at the images, his secondary eyes widening. "Impossible," he whispered. "These species were destroyed because they attacked a primitive world." "The evidence is before you," Juwu replied. Captain Sunwoo stepped forward. "Are you saying the Elders destroyed them to protect humans?" The question hung in the air. Juwu's expression remained neutral, her crystalline features unreadable. "We merely enforce the protocol. humans are off limits. But why? Taejo pressed. What makes these humans special? They fight among themselves. They pollute their world. They have achieved nothing remarkable by galactic standards. Guardian Juwu tilted her head slightly. Your assessment is flawed, Commander. You see only what humans are now. You cannot see what they will become. You protect them for their potential. Sungu asked. We protect the galaxy, Juwu corrected. The protocol exists for good reason. Taejo moved closer to one of the holographic images, the ruins of what appeared to have been an advanced civilization. These records, how old are they? The Duri Empire fell 12,000 of your years ago. The Munho Collective, 8,000. The Republic of Hana, more recently, only 3,000 years passed. And the humans destroyed them all. Taejo couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. I did not say that, Juwu replied. The holographic images faded, leaving the room in its normal lighting. Juwu turned to face the viewport, looking out at the distant blue dot that was Earth. Commander Taejo, your species is young in the cosmos. You see conquest as progress, subjugation as strength. This is common among emerging spacefaring civilizations, but there are forces in this galaxy older and more dangerous than you can comprehend. Forces like the Elders, Sunwu asked softly. Juwu turned back to them. Forces like humanity. Taejo laughed, a sharp, clicking sound. You expect us to believe that these primitive beings pose a threat to developed species like ours. Guardian Juwu stepped closer to Taejo. Despite himself, he stepped back. Come, she said, extending a crystalline hand. Let me show you. Before Taejo could respond, Juwu touched his forehead. His vision went dark, then exploded with images. Humans fighting with primitive weapons, then with increasingly sophisticated technologies. He saw them adapt, innovate, overcome impossible odds. He watched as they turned defeat into victory, weakness into strength, again and again throughout their history. When Juwu removed her hand, Taejo staggered backward. What was that? He gasped. A glimpse, Juwu said. A small sample of human history, enough to understand why the protocol exists. Taejo shook his head, trying to clear it. I still don't understand. If humans are so dangerous, why not eliminate them? That, Juwu said, is not the way of the Elder Collective. We observe, we guide when necessary. We preserve balance. She moved toward the door. Now you have your answers, Commander Taejo. I expect the Novan Armada to be gone from this system within one planetary rotation. The warning has been given. As Juwu reached the door, Taejo called out, What happens if we choose to stay? Juwu paused but did not turn around. Then you will learn personally why the protocol exists. And I assure you, Commander, that is knowledge you do not wish to acquire. The Novan scout ship Shadow Whisper moved silently through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology making it invisible to human tracking systems. Inside, lead scientist Do-Yun checked the ship's systems one final time as they descended toward a mountainous, forested region in what humans called North America. Landing zone secure, announced the pilot. No human settlements within 50 kilometers. Do-Yun nodded, his gray skin flushing slightly blue with excitement. When Commander Taejo had called for volunteers for this mission, Do-Yun had been the first to step forward. Despite Guardian Juwu's warnings, the opportunity to study an off-limits species was too tempting for a xenobiologist to resist. Remember, Do-Yun told his team of 5 researchers, we have 3 cycles to gather data and return to the fleet. Maintain cloaking suits at all times. No direct contact with the natives. Researcher Minji adjusted her equipment. Unlike Do-Yun, whose 6 eyes and leathery skin marked him clearly as Novan, Minji's species had only 2 eyes and smoother skin. Still, no one would mistake her purple complexion and bioluminescent markings for human. Sir, are you certain this is wise? She asked quietly. The Elder Guardian was quite clear about the protocol. Do-hyun's feeding tendrils twitched beneath his breathing mask. The commander believes we need more information before making a decision about Earth. I agree. Scientific inquiry requires evidence, not just warnings from ancient beings. The ship landed softly in a small clearing. As the team prepared to exit, Do-hyun activated his cloaking suit, his form shimmering before becoming nearly invisible. The others followed suit. "Stay within communication range," he ordered. "Record everything." As the hatch opened, Earth's atmosphere rushed in. Despite their breathing filters, the team could smell the rich scents of the forest, soil, plants, animal life. Do-hyun stepped onto Earth's surface first, his footfall silent on the soft ground. Amazing biodiversity, Do-hyun noted as they began collecting samples. His handheld scanner identified thousands of microbial life forms in just a small patch of soil. The variety of life forms here exceeds anything in our database. The team spread out, gathering plant specimens, recording animal movements, and setting up monitoring equipment. Do-hyun found himself repeatedly distracted by the sheer abundance of life around him. Every tree, every rock seemed to host multiple species living in complex relationships. And the humans. "They're even more fascinating up close," he said later that day, as the team gathered to share findings. They had established a small base camp near their ship, hidden by both technology and the natural cover of the forest. For 3 cycles, equivalent to Earth days, they studied humanity. Using small drone-like devices, they observed human settlements from tiny villages to massive cities. They intercepted communications, downloaded information from what humans called the Internet, and watched human behavior in various settings. On the second day, they witnessed the aftermath of what humans called a natural disaster, a flood that had devastated a small town. The research team watched in fascination as humans from nearby areas rushed to help the victims. "Look at this," Minji called to Do-hyun, pointing at her viewing screen. "These humans are giving food and shelter to complete strangers." "Interesting social behavior," Do-hyun agreed. "Perhaps an evolutionary adaptation to increase group survival." Yet that same day, their monitors showed human conflicts in other parts of the planet, wars where they killed each other with shocking efficiency. They're contradictory, researcher Minji observed that evening as the team reviewed their findings. "Capable of terrible violence, yet profound compassion. I've never seen a species with such extreme behavioral range." "Perhaps that's why the elders consider them dangerous," suggested another researcher named Hyun. "They're unpredictable." Do-hyun studied the data thoughtfully. Not entirely unpredictable. There seem to be patterns. They fight to protect resources, territory, and beliefs. But they also form alliances, help those in need, and create beauty with no survival purpose. On the third day, the team prepared to return to the fleet. They had gathered more data than expected, enough to give Commander Taejo a comprehensive report on human civilization. As they loaded their equipment onto the ship, Do-hyun felt a strange reluctance to leave. 5 more minutes, he told the others, stepping away from the ship to take one last soil sample. It happened without warning. A sudden electrical surge disrupted the ship's cloaking system. Alarms blared as the pilot tried to restore power. "System failure," the pilot shouted over the communication channel. All researchers returned immediately. Do-hyun ran back toward the ship just as its engines flared unevenly. The craft rose shakily, tilted at a dangerous angle, then plummeted back to Earth. It crashed through the trees, the impact sending Do-hyun flying backward. When he regained consciousness, smoke filled the air. His cloaking suit had failed, leaving him visible and vulnerable. The ship lay partially destroyed about 50 meters away. Do-hyun crawled toward it, calling for his team. "Minji, Hyun, anyone." He found Minji trapped under debris, her purple skin pale with pain. Hyun lay nearby, unconscious but breathing. The pilot and 2 other researchers showed no life signs. "We need to hide," Do-hyun told Minji as he freed her from the wreckage. "Humans might have seen the crash." "Too late," Minji whispered, pointing behind him. Do-hyun turned to see several humans approaching cautiously through the trees. They carried primitive tools, what their research identified as axes and rifles. Their expression showed fear and curiosity. "Stay still," Do-hyun told Minji. "Perhaps they'll leave." But the humans came closer, speaking to each other in low voices. One pointed at the wrecked ship, another at Do-hyun and Minji. Do-hyun prepared for the worst. Their research had shown humans often reacted violently to threats or the unknown. Instead, the first human approached slowly, hands raised in what their data suggested was a non-threatening gesture. The human spoke, the sounds meaningless to Do-hyun without his translation device, which had been damaged in the crash. To Do-hyun's shock, the human then knelt beside Minji and examined her injuries with gentle hands. Another human approached Hyun, checking his pulse in a surprisingly similar way to Novan medical procedure. More humans arrived, bringing what appeared to be medical supplies and stretchers. With careful movements, they lifted the injured aliens and carried them away from the wreckage. "They're helping us," Minji said in disbelief, her voice weak. Why would they help unknown creatures that crashed into their territory? Do-hyun had no answer. Nothing in their research had prepared them for this response. As the humans carried them toward their settlement, he noticed one had wrapped a protective covering around Minji's injured arm, while another offered water in a container adapted to fit Do-hyun's alien mouth structure. The humans took them to a building in their settlement, a small structure that seemed to serve as a medical facility. They placed the aliens on soft platforms and began treating their injuries with surprising skill, considering they had never encountered Novan physiology before. Do-hyun watched as a human carefully cleaned Minji's wound, the human's face showing concentration and concern. Another human managed to revive Hyun, who looked around in confusion and fear until Do-hyun signaled him to remain calm. "This contradicts everything we expected," Do-hyun whispered to his team. "According to our data, humans typically fear the unknown." "Perhaps," Minji replied weakly, "our data was incomplete." As night fell, the humans brought food and water, carefully observing which items the aliens could consume. They made no attempt to restrain their unexpected visitors or to examine their technology. Instead, they simply provided care. Do-hyun activated his emergency beacon, knowing the fleet would detect it despite its weak signal. As he waited for rescue, he couldn't help but wonder if Guardian Juu's warning had been misunderstood. Perhaps humans weren't dangerous in the way the elders believed, or perhaps this compassion was what made them truly dangerous, their ability to turn even enemies into allies. Commander Taejo paced the bridge of the Eternal Shadow, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly. 2 days had passed since the research team's emergency beacon activated. 2 days of silence. "Any response from the Elder vessel?" he asked Captain Sunwoo. "None, Commander. They maintain position between us and Earth." Taejo made a decision. "Prepare my shuttle. I will speak with Guardian Juu directly." "Commander, that's extremely dangerous," Sunwoo protested. "More dangerous than losing an entire research team." Taejo's feeding tendrils twitched with agitation. "We need answers, not more warnings." The small shuttle departed from the Novan flagship, heading directly toward the massive Elder vessel. Taejo piloted it himself, his heart beating faster than normal. As he approached, a docking bay opened silently, as if the Elders had expected his arrival. Inside the Elder ship, Taejo found himself in a vast chamber unlike anything he had seen before. The walls seemed alive, shifting with patterns of light and energy. Guardian Juu waited at the center, her crystalline form glowing softly. "Your scientists are alive," she said before Taejo could speak. "We detect their life signs." "Then why prevent us from rescuing them?" Taejo demanded. "We have not prevented anything," Juu replied. "We observe. The humans have found your team." A holographic display appeared between them, showing Do-hyun and the others in what appeared to be a human dwelling. They were being treated for injuries. "I don't understand," Taejo said, watching humans tend to his crew with apparent care. Why aren't they being dissected or imprisoned? Because that is not their way, Ju answered. Not unless threatened. Taijo turned to face the Guardian. I demand the truth, he said. Why are humans truly protected? What makes them so special that the Elder Collective enforces this protocol? Ju studied him for several moments. Her crystalline structure shifted slightly, colors flowing through her form like liquid. Come, she said finally, leading him deeper into the ship. They entered a chamber filled with what looked like ancient technology. At the center stood a pedestal with controls that responded to Juwoo's touch. The archives you are about to see are not shared with younger species, she said, but your persistence deserves some truth. After a long silence, Juwoo accessed the ancient archives. A three-dimensional display filled the room, showing star maps and historical records. The protocol exists not to protect humans from the galaxy, Commander, but to protect the galaxy from humans. The display shifted to show a beautiful world with 3 moons. Its cities were built of white stone and gleaming metal, populated by elegant beings with 4 arms. The Duri Empire, Juwoo explained. 12,000 years ago, they discovered Earth and saw only a primitive world rich with resources. They attempted to establish a colony. The images changed to show Duri ships landing on Earth, confronting early human civilizations with vastly superior technology. The humans were defeated easily, Juwoo continued. At first. The next images showed humans studying captured Duri technology, adapting it, improving it. Within 1 generation, humans had reversed engineered weapons and ships. Within 2, they had launched a counterattack. The Duri never expected the humans to learn so quickly, Juwoo said as the display showed human ships destroying Duri colonies. By the time they understood the threat, it was too late. Similar stories played out with the Moonho Collective and the Republic of Hana. Each had attacked Earth, seeing only an easy conquest. Each had inadvertently given humans access to advanced technology. Each had been destroyed when humans turned that technology back against them. Humans evolved on a death world, Juwoo explained. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. Their entire history is adaptation to threats. They turn enemies into allies. They transform weaknesses into strengths. Give them a problem, and they will solve it. Attack them, and they become unstoppable. Taejo finished, understanding dawning. He watched the records with a mixture of horror and fascination. But the Elder Collective is more advanced than any of these species. You could have destroyed humanity before they became a threat. That was considered, Juwoo admitted. But we observe something unusual in humans. When not threatened, they create rather than destroy. They explore rather than conquer. Their potential for both harm and good exceeds any species we have encountered. So you quarantine them, Taejo said. You keep them isolated from the galactic community. We maintain balance, Juwoo corrected. The protocol protects both humanity and the galaxy until humans are ready to join the wider community on equal terms. And when will that be? Juwoo's form shifted colors again. Soon, perhaps. Their development accelerates. Already they dream of stars. Meanwhile, on Earth, Do-hyun and his team were recovering in what humans called a community center. The small town had turned the building into a temporary medical facility and living space for their unexpected visitors. After 3 days, the research team had managed to repair 1 translation device. Though primitive by their standards, it allowed basic communication with their human hosts. That evening, they shared a meal with several humans who had helped rescue them. The atmosphere was tense but curious on both sides. You came from stars? Asked a young human named Jun, pointing upward with clear meaning despite the translation limitations. Yes, Do-hyun replied carefully. There are many worlds with life. The humans exchanged glances, their expressions showing wonder and excitement rather than fear. Why haven't you visited before? Another human asked, an older female named Suk. Minji hesitated, looking at Do-hyun for guidance. That is, complicated. Do-hyun considered their situation. The mission had failed spectacularly, yet in that failure they had discovered something important about humans, something not in any of their research data. "We thought you might be dangerous," Do-hyun said finally, deciding that honesty might be their best approach. Instead of anger, the human showed confusion. "We helped you," Jum said, gesturing to their healing wounds. "Yes," Minji replied. "That surprised us." Suk, who seemed to be a leader among the humans, spoke slowly for the translator. "Any thinking beings in trouble deserve help. Is this not true among your people?" Do-hyun found himself unable to answer. Among the Novan collective, the strong dominated the weak. It was considered the natural order. Yet these humans, despite their primitive technology, seemed to operate by different principles. A loud noise from outside interrupted their conversation. The humans rushed to the windows. Do-hyun followed more slowly, still weak from his injuries. In the night sky above the town, lights appeared, too bright and too regular to be stars. As they watched, a shuttle descended slowly, landing in the same field where the research ship had crashed. "Your people?" Suk asked. "Yes," Do-hyun confirmed, recognizing the Novan design. But it wasn't a rescue team that emerged from the shuttle. It was Commander Taejo himself, accompanied by Captain Sunwoo, and most surprisingly, Guardian Juwoo of the Elder Collective. The humans whispered among themselves, clearly recognizing that Juwoo was something entirely different from the Novans. Do-hyun moved to greet his commander, bowing deeply despite his injuries. "Commander, we apologize for the mission failure." Taejo's 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he looked from his research team to the gathered humans. "The mission did not fail, lead scientist Do-hyun. It succeeded beyond my expectations." He turned to the humans, and to Do-hyun's shock, bowed in their style rather than the Novan way. "People of Earth," Taejo said through his own translation device, "I am Commander Taejo of the Novan Collective. I thank you for assisting my people." Suk stepped forward. "They needed help. We gave it." She gestured to Juwoo. "And this one." "I am Guardian Juwoo of the Elder Collective," Juwoo replied, her voice somehow perfectly understandable without a translation device. "I have watched your world for a very long time." Jun, the young human, looked between the aliens with wide eyes. "Are there many others like you among the stars?" "Many," Juwoo confirmed. "Each unique, each with their own path." "Will we meet them someday?" another human asked. Juwoo turned to Taejo, who looked at his injured research team being cared for by humans who had every reason to fear them, but chose compassion instead. "Perhaps," Taejo said, "sooner than anyone expected." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. Representatives from 12 spacefaring species sat in a semicircle, their vastly different forms illuminated by the soft blue light from above. At the center stood Guardian Juwoo, her crystalline body catching and reflecting the light in patterns across the walls. "This emergency session will now begin," announced the Council Elder, a being so ancient that its original form had evolved into pure energy contained within a hovering metallic sphere. Commander Taejo stood beside Scientist Do-hyun, both feeling small among these ancient powers. The Novan Collective had been granted temporary speaking rights, a rare honor for a species considered young by galactic standards. "We gather to address a serious matter," the Council Elder continued. "The human quarantine protocol has been violated. Worse, direct contact has occurred. Guardian Juwoo, please present the situation." Juwoo moved forward, her crystalline form making a soft singing sound as she moved. "For thousands of years, isolation has been our policy regarding Earth. The protocol has prevented countless conflicts and protected developing species throughout the galaxy." The chamber's display activated, showing images of the Novan research team's crash and their rescue by humans. "Yet now we face an unprecedented situation," Juwoo continued. "Direct contact has occurred, and the humans reacted not with fear or aggression, but with compassion. The question before this council is, should the isolation protocol be maintained, or is it time for change? Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many species had strong opinions about humans, though few had actually encountered them. The Vanter representative, a massive being with dark blue skin and 4 arms, spoke first. The protocol exists for good reason. Humans are unpredictable and dangerous. Their history is filled with warfare and destruction. Why risk galactic peace for one primitive species? Several representatives nodded in agreement. Commander Tejo glanced at Do-Yun, who looked nervous but determined. Lead scientist Do-Yun of the Novan Collective may speak, the council elder announced. Do-Yun stepped forward, still limping slightly from his injuries. Honored council, I have experienced human behavior firsthand. These humans rescued my team, he stated, presenting their findings with clear images and data. They showed curiosity, not aggression. They treated our injuries. They shared their food and shelter. They communicated with respect. Do-Yun activated his own display, showing humans tending to alien wounds, working to understand alien biology, and sharing their limited resources. The data we collected suggests humans possess remarkable potential as allies. Yes, they are capable of violence, but primarily when threatened. Their ability to adapt, to solve problems, to cooperate across differences, these qualities would benefit the galactic community. The Zithran representative, a being made of living smoke, swirled anxiously. Pretty words, but we cannot ignore history. Every species that has attempted to conquer Earth has been destroyed. The humans learn quickly and show no mercy to those who threaten them. And if they become enemies? Asked the Vanter representative directly. What happens when humans gain access to faster-than-light travel, to planet-destroying weapons, to genetic manipulation technologies? Will they remain so friendly then? The chamber grew quiet as all considered these questions. Then, to everyone's surprise, Commander Tejo stepped forward without being recognized. Commander Tejo, the council elder warned, you have not been granted speaking rights. Forgive my breach of protocol, Tejo said, bowing deeply, but I must speak. After a moment, the elder signaled permission. Commander Tejo stood tall, his 6 eyes looking around the chamber. The old records show what happens to those who make humans their enemies, he said clearly. But no record exists of what happens when we make them friends. He activated a final display, showing the interaction between his team and the humans of the small town. I have seen humans up close. Yes, they are dangerous, but so are many species represented in this chamber. The difference is that humans still have a choice about what they will become. If we continue to isolate them, they will eventually break that isolation themselves. But if we guide them, welcome them, perhaps their remarkable abilities can be directed toward the benefit of all. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, some supportive, others deeply opposed. The debate continued for hours, with all 12 species presenting arguments. Guardian Juwu remained silent, observing. Finally, the council elder called for silence. We have heard enough. It is time to decide. The voting process was silent and private, each representative connecting mentally with the council's central system. As the final vote registered, the elder's metallic sphere glowed brighter. The council has reached a decision, the elder announced. By the narrowest of margins, we authorize careful, controlled first contact with humanity. A delegation representing the Galactic Council will approach Earth openly. Guardian Juwu will oversee this process to ensure the safety of all involved. Tejo and Do-Yun exchanged looks of relief and excitement. Their actions, though initially a violation of protocol, had changed the course of galactic history. 3 solar cycles later, a specially designed vessel approached Earth's orbit. Unlike previous visitors, they made no attempt to hide their presence. The ship was visible to Earth's telescopes and detection systems, causing worldwide excitement and concern. In the control room of the communication vessel, representatives from 7 species gathered around the broadcast station. Commander Tejo, Captain Sunwoo and scientist Do-Yun represented the Novan collective. Guardian Ju stood nearby, her crystalline form now shaped to appear less alien to human eyes. "All Earth communication systems are receiving our signal," announced the communications officer. "We are broadcasting on all frequencies they can detect." Taijo nodded. "Begin transmission." The message, carefully crafted by the Council's best linguists and cultural experts, was broadcast in 27 human languages simultaneously. It appeared on television screens, radio broadcasts, internet platforms, and communication devices across Earth. "People of Earth, you are not alone. We come in peace and friendship. For ages our directive has been, humans are off limits. We don't harm them. Today, we hope to establish understanding between our civilizations." The message continued with simple explanations of who they were and why they had chosen this moment to make contact. They requested a response from Earth's united governments, though they understood this might take time. On the view screens surrounding the control room, Taijo watched the humans' reactions captured by the ship's monitoring systems: surprise, fear, wonder, excitement. Some humans celebrated in streets, others prayed in temples. Military forces went on high alert. Scientists wept with joy. "Do you think they'll accept us?" Sunwoo asked, her purple skin pulsing with nervous energy. "They rescued strangers who crashed on their world," Do-Yun replied. "I believe they will." Guardian Ju approached, her crystalline form chiming softly. "The protocol has served its purpose for millennia," she said. "Perhaps it is indeed time for change." Hours passed as Earth's nations conferred frantically, trying to formulate a unified response. The ship remained in orbit, making no threatening moves, simply waiting. Finally, the communications officer announced, "We're receiving a response. It appears to be a joint transmission from Earth's major nations." "On screen," Taijo ordered. The main view screen activated, showing a human female standing at a podium with flags from many nations behind her. "To the visitors who have contacted Earth today," she began, her voice steady despite the historic moment, "we receive your message with hope and caution. After consultation between Earth's nations, we have agreed to a united response. We welcome peaceful contact with other intelligent life, and we make this promise in return: we don't harm those who don't harm us." The control room erupted in sounds of relief and celebration. Even Guardian Juwoo's crystalline form glowed more brightly. Taijo nodded in satisfaction. Perhaps the ancient protocol needed just one small adjustment. "Humans are off limits. We don't harm them" had protected the galaxy for millennia. But the new understanding might be even more powerful. "We don't harm each other." As the ship prepared for the next phase of contact, Taijo looked at the beautiful blue planet below. For the first time in galactic history, humans would step beyond their isolation and join the wider community of intelligent life. What they would become remained to be seen. But today, at least, the future looked bright. For humans, and for all who would come to know them not as dangers, but as friends.